The winter air cut through my thin jacket as I hurried down the street, clutching my bag against my side. My breath formed small clouds in front of my face, dissipating into the darkness. 3 months into this job, and I still wasn't used to the late-night walks home from Mr. Castellano's mansion. The neighborhood was too expensive for someone like me, with its manicured lawns and security cameras discreetly mounted on wrought iron gates. I didn't belong here. I was just the maid, invisible, until something needed cleaning. My fingertips had gone numb despite my gloves having only one small hole in the right index finger. I'd meant to stitch it up last week, but between caring for my grandmother and picking up extra shifts, finding time had been impossible. Time was a luxury I couldn't afford, much like everything else in this part of the city. The distant sound of an engine made me glance over my shoulder. A black SUV with tinted windows crawled down the street, headlights illuminating the fog that had begun to settle. I quickened my pace, my heart rate picking up. It was probably nothing. Rich people and their expensive cars were common here, but my grandmother's warnings echoed in my head. Elena, a young woman alone is always a target. Be careful, mija. I turned the corner toward the bus stop, my worn sneakers slipping slightly on a patch of ice. The SUV turned too, my throat tightened. The first time I'd met Antonio Castellano, I'd been serving champagne at a charity gala where I'd picked up catering work. I hadn't known who he was then, just that he carried himself with the quiet assurance of someone who had never been told no in his life. He wore power like a second skin, his custom suit fitting perfectly across broad shoulders. Even in a room full of wealthy people, others stepped aside for him. I'd noticed his eyes first, dark and evaluating, missing nothing. When I'd accidentally spilled a drop of champagne on his sleeve while serving, I'd expected anger. Instead, he'd looked at me as if truly seeing me, unlike the other guests who looked through the staff as if we were furniture. "I'm so sorry, sir," I'd stammered, mortified. "What's your name?" His voice was low, with an accent I couldn't quite place, Italian maybe, but Americanized after years in the States. "Elena Diaz, sir." He'd nodded once, as if filing the information away. "No harm done, Elena Diaz." A week later, his assistant had contacted me with a job offer. 3 times what I'd been making at the catering company. Too good to refuse, especially with Abuela's medical bills piling up. I hadn't questioned my good fortune. Now, as I waited at the deserted bus stop, I wondered if I should have. The black SUV rolled to a stop about 30 feet away. No one got out, but I could feel eyes on me. My phone was nearly dead, and the bus wasn't due for another 15 minutes. I clutched my pepper spray keychain, a gift from my cousin after she'd moved away to college, leaving me as Abuela's sole caretaker. Just as I considered walking to the next stop, a sleek silver Bentley turned the corner, its engine purring softly. It stopped directly in front of me. The back window lowered with a quiet hum, revealing Mr. Castellano's face, partially shadowed. "Elena, it's freezing. Get in." Not a request. My stomach nodded. In 3 months of working in his home, he'd barely spoken to me. I cleaned his mansion 6 days a week, sometimes glimpsing him in his office or kitchen, always with at least one of his associates nearby. He was unfailingly polite but distant, leaving instructions with his house manager rather than addressing me directly. So why was he here now? "The bus will be here soon, Mr. Castellano. Thank you, though." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "The last bus left 10 minutes ago. Schedule change." He pushed the door open. "I won't ask again." I hesitated. The black SUV was still there, engine idling. Were they together? Was this some kind of trap? But what choice did I have? It was either get in his car or stand in the cold until I realized he was right about the bus. The interior of the Bentley was warm and smelled of expensive leather and his cologne, something woody with notes of amber. I sat as far from him as the seat allowed, my bag clutched on my lap like a shield. "Thank you," I managed, staring at my reflection in the window rather than at him. "You shouldn't be walking alone at night, especially in this weather." His voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. Was it concern? Annoyance? "I usually take the bus, but tonight I stayed late to finish the silver service polishing," I explained, unsure why I was justifying myself. I know. Of course he knew. It was his house. But something about the way he said it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. As the car pulled away, I noticed the black SUV falling into place behind us. My pulse quickened again. Are they with you? I nodded toward the vehicle. His expression remained impassive as he glanced back. Yes. Security. Do you always need so much security? The question slipped out before I could think better of it. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Always. We rode in silence for several minutes, the city lights casting intermittent shadows across his face. In the dim light, I could study him without seeming to. His profile was sharp, straight nose, defined jawline partially covered by precisely trimmed stubble. A small scar cut through his left eyebrow, the only imperfection on an otherwise immaculate face. His hands rested easily on his knees, but I noticed the signet ring on his right hand and what looked like a gun holster beneath his open coat. "Where do you live, Elena?" he asked finally. "Parkside District," I replied, deliberately vague. Something deep within warned me not to give him my exact address, though I suspected he could find it easily enough if he wanted to. He nodded and spoke quietly to the driver. I tried to push away thoughts about how this man knew when the bus schedule had changed and had found me at exactly the right moment. I tried not to think about how his men in the SUV had been following me even before he arrived. "May I ask why you were waiting for me tonight?" I finally gathered the courage to ask. "I wasn't waiting for you. I was passing by." A lie. Even I could see that. "And your security? Were they just passing by too?" His dark eyes fixed on me, evaluating my boldness. "You notice a lot for someone who works so hard to be invisible. Elena Diaz." The way he said my full name made it sound like he owned it somehow. I looked down at my worn gloves, suddenly conscious of every patch, every fraying thread in my clothing. "Being invisible is safer sometimes," I murmured. "Is that what you believe?" He leaned forward slightly. "Yet you weren't invisible tonight, were you?" My head snapped up. What does that mean? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "Here, take it." I can't accept gifts from my employer," I stammered, though no such rule existed as far as I knew. It just felt wrong, dangerous even. "It's not a gift. It's a necessity." He placed the box on the seat between us. "Open it tomorrow." The car slowed as we entered my neighborhood, all crumbling apartment buildings and shuttered storefronts with security grates. The contrast to his world couldn't have been more stark. "This is close enough," I said quickly, not wanting him to see the specific building where Abuela and I lived, with its broken entry light and graffiti-covered door. He ignored me. "Which building?" When I hesitated, his eyes narrowed slightly. "Elena, which building?" "The brick one, with the green awning," I relented. The car stopped. Before I could reach for the door handle, he was out and opening my door. The driver and another man from the SUV instantly flanking him, scanning the street. I felt exposed, vulnerable, as if by bringing him here, I'd given away a secret. "Thank you for the ride," I said, stepping out and clutching my bag and the velvet box he'd insisted I take. "I'll have Marco pick you up tomorrow morning," he said, his tone making it clear this wasn't up for discussion. "That's not necessary. 6:30. He cut me off. "Be ready." As I walked toward my building, I could feel his eyes on me. Only when I reached the security door did I hear his car door close. The weight of the small velvet box seemed to burn through my bag. What had I done tonight that warranted this attention? Why was Antonio Castellano, a man who barely acknowledged my existence for 3 months, suddenly appearing at bus stops and offering rides and mysterious gifts? I climbed the stairs to our third-floor apartment, my mind racing. Abuela would be sleeping, her medication making her drift off early these days. I unlocked our door as quietly as I could, slipping inside the small apartment that smelled of her cooking and the lavender sachets she placed in every drawer. In the safety of my tiny bedroom, I finally pulled out the velvet box. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside, nestled against black velvet, was a cell phone, Sleek, expensive, and definitely not something I could afford. A small note was folded beside it. Keep this with you at all times. It's secure. AC? Secure? From what? From whom? And why would Antonio Castellano care about my safety? I set the phone on my nightstand without turning it on. Whatever game this was, I wasn't ready to play, but as I changed for bed, the realization hit me. I might not have a choice. The invisible line I'd crossed tonight wasn't one I could step back over. Tomorrow I'd go to work as usual. I'd polish his floors and dust his bookshelves and clean his windows. And I'd pretend that tonight never happened. But even as I made this plan, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Things would never be the same again. I'd been seen. And in Antonio Castellano's world, I suspected that being seen was the most dangerous thing of all. Morning came too quickly. I'd barely slept, tossing and turning as my mind replayed the previous night's encounter. The phone sat untouched on my nightstand, a silent reminder that something had shifted in my carefully constructed world. "Mija, there's a car outside," Abuela called, her voice tinged with suspicion. "A fancy one." I joined her at our small window. Sure enough, a black Mercedes waited at the curb, a driver in a suit standing beside it. Not the Bentley from last night, but unmistakably one of Mr. Castellano's vehicles. "It's from work," I explained, trying to sound casual. "My boss is sending me rides now." Abuela's eyebrows rose, disappearing beneath her silver bangs. At 72, she missed very little. "Since when do cleaning ladies get chauffeured?" "It's temporary, because of the weather." The lie felt heavy on my tongue. I'd never kept secrets from her before. She studied my face, then made the sign of the cross. "Be careful, Elena. When rich men suddenly notice pretty young women, it rarely ends well." "It's not like that," I protested, though I wasn't entirely sure what it was. "Take your father's medal today," she insisted, retrieving the small St. Christopher pendant from her jewelry box. "For protection." I let her fasten it around my neck, more for her peace of mind than my own. My father had died when I was 12, leaving us with little besides this silver medallion and a stack of gambling debts. Abuela believed it kept him safe through 2 tours in Afghanistan before a drunk driver took him from us on American soil. The driver, Marco, I presumed, gave me a respectful nod as I approached. "Good morning, Miss Diaz." The formality was jarring. Yesterday I'd been Elena the maid. Today, I was Miss Diaz with a private car. "I need to stop at a pharmacy," I said as we pulled away. Abuela's heart medication was running low. Marco didn't hesitate. "Of course." Inside the Mercedes, I finally examined the phone Mr. Castellano had given me. It was the latest model, with only one number programmed into it. No name, just a single contact. I turned it off and buried it back in my bag. The Castellano estate looked different in the pale morning light, less intimidating but no less impressive. 3 stories of limestone and glass perched on a hilltop, surrounded by meticulously landscaped grounds. As we pulled through the gates, I noticed 2 men I'd never seen before patrolling the perimeter. Mrs. Winters, the house manager, met me at the service entrance, her perpetually pinched expression more severe than usual. "You're to work in the East Wing today," she instructed, handing me a different set of keys. "Mr. Castellano's private quarters need attention." My stomach dropped. In 3 months, I'd never been allowed in his personal rooms. The East Wing was off limits to regular staff. "Is there a special reason?" I ventured. Her lips thinned further. "He requested you specifically." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Whatever you think is happening, Elena, I advise you to remember your position. Mr. Castellano has certain patterns with staff. They don't end well." With that cryptic warning, she turned and clip-clopped away on her sensible heels. The East Wing was a revelation. While the rest of the mansion was immaculately decorated in a magazine-perfect style that spoke of professional designers, his private space felt different. Personal, almost. Dark woods, leather-bound books, and artwork that wasn't chosen to impress but to be enjoyed. A Goya sketch hung beside what looked like a child's framed drawing. A worn leather chair faced the window overlooking the city skyline, a book splayed open on its arm. I began with the bathroom, a masculine space of black marble and brushed steel. His scent lingered here, that same amber cologne, mingling with shower steam and shaving soap. I worked methodically, trying not to notice personal items. The prescription bottle on the counter, omeprazole, for ulcers. A gold watch carelessly set aside, a dog-eared paperback of Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude in the original Spanish. Each item painted a picture of the man that contradicted my assumptions. The feared employer, the man who traveled with armed security, read Garcia Marquez in Spanish and had ulcers. It felt invasive, this glimpse into his private world. I was changing the bedding when I heard the door open. My hands froze on the silky black sheets. "Don't stop on my account," his voice, low and controlled as always. I didn't turn around. "I can come back later, Mr. Castellano." Antonio. That made me look up. He stood in the doorway, suit jacket off, the top button of his shirt undone, less formal than I'd ever seen him. "Excuse me?" "My name is Antonio. When we're alone, I'd prefer you use it." He stepped into the room. "Did you bring the phone?" I nodded, continuing to smooth the sheets with hands that weren't quite steady. "Is it on?" "No." He sighed, crossing to where I stood. "The purpose of a security phone, Elena, is that it's on and with you." He extended his hand. "May I?" Reluctantly, I retrieved it from my bag. He took it, his fingers brushing mine for the briefest moment. "It's not what you think," he said, activating the phone. "This isn't a tracking device or a way to spy on you. It's a direct line, to me. If you need anything, if you feel unsafe—" He paused, dark eyes meeting mine. "One button, that's all." "Why would I feel unsafe?" His expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "Did you turn on the local news this morning?" I shook my head. "Maria Vasquez was found in the park 3 blocks from your apartment, 24 years old, strangled." My blood ran cold. Maria worked at the corner bodega near my building. She'd sold me milk just 2 days ago, complaining about her boyfriend's jealousy. That's terrible," I managed. "Yes." He returned the phone to me. 3 women in that neighborhood in 2 months. All young, all Hispanic, all walking alone at night. Understanding dawned slowly. "The SUV last night. They weren't following me for you. They were protecting me." A muscle in his jaw tightened. "I should have arranged transportation for you weeks ago. An oversight I won't repeat." I struggled to reconcile this concern with the distant employer I'd known. "Why me? You have dozens of employees. Not all of them walk home alone through unsafe neighborhoods." He moved to the window, looking out over the grounds. "Not all of them have someone depending on them." My spine stiffened. "You know about my grandmother? I make it my business to know about the people who enter my home." He turned back to face me. "Your loyalty to her is admirable. Rare these days." There was something in his voice, a note of respect perhaps, but also something else. Loneliness? No, that couldn't be right. Not for a man like him. "The phone stays on," he continued, brooking no argument. "And you accept the rides, morning and evening. For how long? Until it's safe." The implication that he would determine when that was hung in the air between us. "And if I refuse? If I quit?" The words were bold, perhaps foolish, but I needed to know if I had a choice. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Then I'd have to find another reason to ensure your safety." It wasn't a threat exactly, but it wasn't a simple statement either. There was weight behind his words, an absolute certainty that what he wanted would happen one way or another. "Why do you care?" I asked quietly. He considered me for a long moment. "Finish your work, Elena. We'll talk more later." With that, he left, the scent of his cologne lingering in the air. I sank onto the half-made bed, my heart racing. What had I stumbled into? Throughout the day, I felt eyes on me as I worked. Not just his, though I caught him watching me once from his office doorway, but others. The security detail, Mrs. Winters. Even the gardener seemed to observe me with new interest. By afternoon, I'd pieced together fragments of whispered conversations. Something about a rival family making threats. Someone named Vincenzo being released from prison. Security protocols being upgraded. In the kitchen, preparing to leave, I overheard Mrs. Winters speaking urgently into her phone. The Rossi situation is escalating. Mr. Castellano isn't concerned about himself, but the girl. She stopped abruptly when she noticed me, ending the call with a tight smile. Ready to go, Elena? Marco appeared in the doorway right on cue. As we drove back toward the city, I worked up my courage. Marco, what's happening? Why the sudden concern for my safety? His eyes met mine briefly in the rearview mirror. It's not my place to say, Miss Diaz. Please, I think I have a right to know. He hesitated. There have been threats against Mr. Castellano and those close to him. I'm not close to him, I protested. I'm just his maid. Marco's expression was unreadable. Mr. Castellano decides who's under his protection. It's not for anyone else to question. These threats, they're from criminals? Is he in danger because of his business? A slight smile touched Marco's lips. You should ask him yourself. His business, I persisted. What exactly does Mr. Castellano do? Imports mainly. Some real estate. Investments. The practiced answer came too smoothly. And that requires armed guards? In some circles, yes. We lapsed into silence for the remainder of the journey. As we approached my neighborhood, Marco took an unexpected turn. This isn't the way to my apartment, I observed. A flutter of panic rising. Change of plans. Mr. Castellano would like to speak with you. Now? Where? His city residence. I'd heard rumors of Antonio Castellano's penthouse downtown, but had never seen it. Unlike the suburban mansion where I worked, this was his true home. At least according to staff gossip. The building rose like a gleaming spear of glass and steel above the financial district. The underground parking was guarded, the private elevator requiring both a key card and fingerprint scan. Marco escorted me up, handing me off to a stern-looking man in the penthouse foyer. Miss Diaz, welcome. I'm Vincent, head of Mr. Castellano's security. Please. He gestured for me to follow. The penthouse was nothing like the mansion. Where that was traditional, almost old world in its opulence, this space was starkly modern, all clean lines and open spaces, walls of glass revealing panoramic city views. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. He'll be with you shortly, Vincent said, leaving me alone in what appeared to be a living room. I wandered to the windows, gazing down at the city stretching out below. From here, even my run-down neighborhood looked beautiful, just twinkling lights in the distance. How different the world must look from this height, I thought. How removed from the struggles of ordinary people. Beautiful, isn't it? I turned to find Antonio watching me from the doorway, his suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. More casual than I'd ever seen him, yet somehow no less intimidating. Yes, I admitted, though I imagine everything looks beautiful from up here. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Not everything. He crossed to a sideboard, pouring amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. Drink? I shook my head. I don't drink on empty stomachs. You haven't eaten? He frowned. I'll have something prepared. That's not necessary. I should get home. My grandmother has been called. She knows you'll be late. Irritation flared through me. You called my grandmother? Without asking me? I had Mrs. Winters call, to avoid worrying her. He approached, offering one of the glasses. It's just water. You look like you need it. I accepted reluctantly, maintaining distance between us. Why am I here, Mr. Castellano? Antonio, he corrected gently. And you're here because we need to discuss your situation. My situation? He gestured toward a seating area. Please. I perched on the edge of a leather sofa, watching as he sat opposite me, entirely at ease in his domain. There are things about me you should know, he began. Things that explain the security, the precautions. I waited, the glass cool against my palm. My family has interests that sometimes create enemies. Dangerous ones. His dark eyes held mine steadily. 3 nights ago, I received information that one such enemy had identified you as a way to get to me. Me? I nearly laughed. I'm nobody to you. That's not their perception. He leaned forward. Someone saw me speaking to you at the charity gala. Then you began working in my home. Assumptions were made. Understanding dawned slowly, horrifyingly. They think I'm your... what? Girlfriend? Mistress? He didn't flinch at the words. They think you matter to me, and in their world that makes you valuable, a potential pressure point. But I don't, I said, my voice hollow. Matter to you, I mean. Something flickered in his expression, too quick to interpret. You work in my home. You're under my responsibility. That's enough. The murdered women in my neighborhood, unrelated, as far as we know. But it highlighted the risk you were already facing. He set his glass down carefully. Elena, I need you to understand something. The people threatening you won't care that you're just a maid. They won't believe it, and even if they did, it wouldn't matter. In their eyes, you're connected to me. That makes you a target. Fear, cold and absolute, settled in my stomach. What am I supposed to do? Accept my protection, follow security protocols, and... He hesitated, unusual for a man who seemed so certain of everything. Consider a temporary relocation. Relocation? You mean leave my home? My grandmother? No, I stood abruptly. I can't do that. Your grandmother would come too, of course. I have a property. No, I repeated firmly. We're not leaving our apartment. He studied me, something like respect in his gaze. Then we strengthened security there. New locks, monitoring system, guards. Guards outside my apartment. The neighbors will think... I don't care what they think. He cut in, voice hardening. Your safety isn't negotiable, Elena. The way he said it, absolute, commanding, reminded me of what he really was, a man accustomed to complete control, a man whose world operated by different rules than mine. Who are you really? I asked quietly. No more vague answers about imports and investments. I deserve the truth. He was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he rose and moved to the window, hands in his pockets as he looked out over his domain. My father came to this country with nothing, he finally said. Built an empire through sheer will and intelligence. And yes, sometimes through means others might question. He protected what was his business, his family, his people. He turned to face me. I do the same. It wasn't a direct answer, but it told me enough. The rumors about the Castellano family weren't just rumors. The security wasn't just precaution. You're afraid, he observed. Shouldn't I be? He crossed the room, stopping just close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his gaze. Not of me. Never of me, Elena. His proximity sent an unexpected warmth through me, at odds with the fear still churning in my stomach. For a breathless moment, I thought he might touch me, my face, my hair, something to underscore his words. But he kept his hands at his sides. I don't know what to do, I admitted. Voice barely above a whisper, trust me. His voice was low, almost gentle. Let me keep you safe. And despite every warning bell ringing in my mind, despite Abuela's cautions and Mrs. Winter's hints and my own instincts, I found myself wanting to believe him, wanting to trust that in Antonio Castellano's dangerous world, I might find protection rather than destruction. That night I couldn't sleep. My small bedroom felt different somehow. The familiar walls suddenly porous, the locked windows insufficient. I kept replaying Antonio's words. In their eyes, you're connected to me. That makes you a target. How had my life changed so dramatically in just 2 days? By morning, 2 men in suits were stationed outside our building. Abuela eyed them suspiciously from behind our curtains. What kind of trouble are you in, mija? She asked, her voice tight with worry. I explained as much as I could, a sanitized version where my employer was concerned about neighborhood crime and offering extra security. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes, but she nodded and squeezed my hand. Men like him always want something in return, Elena. Remember that. The ride to the mansion was silent, my thoughts too chaotic for conversation. Marco seemed to understand, leaving me to my worries without interruption. When we arrived, Mrs. Winters informed me that Mr. Castellano, Antonio, had left for business meetings downtown, but wanted me to continue working in the East Wing. He's having your security clearance upgraded, she added, not bothering to hide her disapproval. You'll have access to areas previously restricted to you. I didn't ask for that, I said defensively. Her expression softened slightly. No, I don't suppose you did. She hesitated. Elena, be careful. Mr. Castellano is complicated. His world operates by different rules. Once you're in it, it's nearly impossible to leave. I wanted to tell her I hadn't chosen this, but the words stuck in my throat. Hadn't I? I'd accepted the job when it seemed too good to be true. I'd gotten into his car that night. I'd agreed to his protection. The East Wing felt different today, less like I was intruding, and more like I was being deliberately shown something. Beyond the bedroom and office I'd cleaned yesterday were rooms I'd never seen, a private gym, a smaller, more intimate library, and a room that appeared to be a shrine to family. Photos of an older couple I assumed were his parents, a younger Antonio in a graduation gown, family gatherings spanning decades. There was warmth here that contrasted sharply with the calculated elegance of the rest of the mansion. In his office, I noticed a photo I'd missed yesterday. Antonio, with a young boy, perhaps 8 or 9, at what looked like a baseball game. Both were smiling, the boy wearing a team cap that matched Antonio's. A nephew, perhaps. The resemblance was there in the shape of their eyes, the strong jawline. My godson. I whirled around to find Antonio in the doorway, watching me. I hadn't heard him return. I'm sorry, It's fine. You're meant to be here. He stepped into the room, impeccable as always in a charcoal suit. Michael. He's 9, son of my closest friend, who died 4 years ago. I looked back at the photo. You seem close. I am. He's family. He said it simply. But I heard what he wasn't saying. In his world, family wasn't just about blood. I didn't expect you back so early, I said, setting down my dusting cloth. Change of plans. We need to talk. He gestured toward the sitting area in the corner of his office. Please. I sat, acutely aware of my uniform, my hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, my hands red from cleaning products. He didn't seem to notice the disparity, taking the chair opposite mine. There's been a development, he began without preamble. The threat is more immediate than we thought. My heart raced. What does that mean? It means your apartment isn't safe, even with guards. I need you and your grandmother to move. Today. That's impossible, I protested. Her medical equipment, her routine. She's elderly and not in good health. I can't just uproot her without warning. Everything will be taken care of. Medical equipment replaced, nurse visits arranged, whatever she needs. He leaned forward. Elena, listen to me. These people have made specific threats against you. Against her. They know where you live. A chill ran through me. Why? Why target a cleaning woman and her grandmother? It makes no sense. His expression darkened. Because Vincenzo Rossi is a sadistic bastard who believes hurting you would hurt me. He ran a hand through his hair, the first genuinely agitated gesture I'd seen from him, and he's right. The admission hung between us, changing the air in the room. You barely know me, I said quietly. He met my gaze directly. I know enough. What does that mean? It means I've watched you for 3 months. How you work, how you carry yourself, how you speak to others when you think no one's listening. His voice was low, intense. I know you send money to your cousin in college. I know you read to your grandmother when her eyes are too tired. I know you're kind to people who've shown you no kindness. I should have been frightened by how much he knew. But instead, I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. You've been watching me all this time? At first, it was standard background monitoring for a new employee. Then, he paused, as if considering his next words carefully. Then it became something else. What? Interest. The word was simple, but laden with meaning. You intrigued me, Elena. You still do. My face warmed under his steady gaze. So this protection, it's not just because I work for you. No. The directness of his answer startled me. I'd expected him to deflect, to maintain the employer-employee pretense we'd been carefully preserving. I don't know what to say, I admitted. Say you'll move. Today, let me keep you safe. I thought of Abuela, of our small apartment filled with memories and familiar comforts. And I thought of Maria Vasquez, Found strangled in the park. Where would we go? Relief flickered across his face. I have a property in the historic district. Private, secure, comfortable. Your grandmother would have her own suite, adapted to her needs. For how long? Until the threat is eliminated. I didn't want to know what eliminated meant in his world. And then what? We go back to our lives as if nothing happened? You go back to being my employer? And I go back to being your maid? Something changed in his expression. A softening around the eyes. A slight parting of lips. Is that what you want? The question caught me off guard. I don't know what I want anymore. 2 days ago, my life made sense. He reached out, his hand covering mine on the armrest. The touch was electric, sending warmth up my arm. I can't go back to pretending, Elena. Not now. Pretending what? That I don't see you. That you don't matter. His thumb traced small circles on my skin. That I don't think about you. My breath caught. This was dangerous territory. Far more dangerous than threats from rival families. This was the line Mrs. Winters had warned me about, the pattern she'd hinted at. There are rumors, I said carefully. About you and female staff. His hand stilled but didn't withdraw. What rumors? That you have patterns, that things don't end well. A shadow crossed his face. One relationship, 5 years ago. She worked as my personal assistant. He withdrew his hand. It ended badly, yes, but not for the reasons people assume. What happened? She betrayed me. The words were clipped, final. Sold information to a rival. Used what she knew about me, about my family, to hurt us. He stood, moving to the window. People see what they expect to see, Elena. They expect me to be a predator, so that's the story they create. I didn't know if I believed him. I wanted to. More than I should have. I'll need to talk to my grandmother. Explain things. He nodded. Of course. Marco will take you home now. Pack what you need. A team will handle the rest. As I rose to leave, he added, Elena, thank you for trusting me. But I wasn't sure if I did trust him. Not completely. I was making a choice based on fear. Fear of the threat against us, yes. But also fear of what might happen if I refused him. At home, Abuela took the news with surprising calm. I knew something was wrong, she said, her arthritic hands folded in her lap. This man, he's dangerous, isn't he? He says he'll protect us, I answered, avoiding the question. She studied my face. And you believe him? I don't know that we have a choice. Her smile was sad. There's always a choice, mija, but sometimes all the options are bad ones. 2 hours later, a team of movers arrived, efficiently packing our belongings under the watchful eye of Vincent, Antonio's head of security. A medical transport was arranged for Abuela, complete with a nurse to accompany her. Everything happened with military precision, as if they'd done this many times before. Perhaps they had. The property, in the historic district, turned out to be a restored Victorian mansion, divided into separate apartments, but clearly all owned by Antonio. Our unit was on the first floor, accessible for Abuela, with wide doorways to accommodate her wheelchair on bad days. It was beautiful, filled with light from tall windows, the furniture a perfect blend of comfort and elegance. Someone had arranged Abuela's religious icons on a shelf in the living room and placed her favorite Afghan over the arm of a chair, as if trying to make it feel like home. As night fell, I stood at the window, watching security personnel patrol the grounds. Abuela had gone to bed early, exhausted by the day's upheaval, but pleased with her new accommodations, particularly the modern bathroom with accessibility features she'd never had before. I sensed rather than heard Antonio's arrival. Perhaps it was the subtle shift in the security guard's posture, or maybe I was just becoming attuned to his presence. He knocked softly on the door a few minutes later. When I opened it, he stood there holding a small bouquet of wildflowers, not the formal roses or lilies I might have expected, but meadow blooms in soft yellows and whites. For your grandmother, he said, offering them to me. My mother always said fresh flowers make a new place feel like home, and the thoughtfulness of the gesture caught me off guard. Thank you. She'll love them. May I come in? Just for a moment. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered. his presence filling the space in a way that had nothing to do with his physical size. He seemed different here, less the untouchable boss and more human. "Is everything satisfactory? Do you need anything?" He glanced around, noting the few personal items we'd unpacked so far. "It's more than satisfactory," I assured him. "It's beautiful. Abuela is already in love with the bathtub." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Good. There's a panic button in each room. Security is on the grounds 24/7. My apartment is upstairs." He hesitated. "I hope that doesn't make you uncomfortable." The fact that he would be living so close sent a flutter through my stomach that I tried to ignore. "It's fine. You've been very generous." "Not generous. Responsible." He moved toward the window, looking out at the security perimeter. "They're still out there, Elena, watching, waiting, these people, the ones threatening us. Will they really try to hurt us?" Antonio didn't answer immediately. He continued to stare out the window, his profile sharp against the dim light. "Yes," he finally said, his voice low. "They would. Vincenzo Rossi lost everything because of me. His freedom, his son, his position. He spent 7 years planning his revenge." "What did you do to him?" I asked, not sure I wanted to know the answer. He turned to face me. "I testified against him. He ordered the murder of a family, including 2 children over a business dispute. I couldn't." He paused, something raw flickering across his face. "Even in my world, there are lines you don't cross." "Your world," I repeated softly. "The Mafia." He didn't flinch at the word. "That's what people call it. I prefer to think of it as a family business with certain traditional structures." Despite everything, a small laugh escaped me. "That's quite a euphemism." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "It's also the truth. My father built legitimate businesses. Shipping, real estate, construction. The other aspects," he shrugged. "They became necessary in certain environments. And you? Did they become necessary for you too?" His eyes held mine. "I do what's needed to protect what's mine." The words sent a shiver down my spine, not entirely from fear. There was something undeniably compelling about his certainty, his absolute commitment to protection. "Am I yours now?" The question slipped out before I could stop it, hanging in the air between us. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. "Do you want to be?" My heart raced. This was happening too fast, spinning out of control. 2 days ago, he had been my distant employer. Now we stood in an apartment he'd provided, discussing whether I belonged to him in some way. "I don't know what I want," I admitted. "Everything's happened so quickly." He nodded, not pushing. "Get some rest, Elena. We'll talk more tomorrow." He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. "Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me or Vincent. Understood?" "Yes." After he left, I leaned against the door, my thoughts in turmoil. What was I doing? Abuela's warnings echoed in my mind. Men like him always want something in return. But what did Antonio Castellano want from me? The next few days established a new routine. Marco drove me to the mansion each morning, where I continued my usual cleaning duties. Antonio was often absent, dealing with what Mrs. Winters vaguely referred to as the situation. Each evening, I returned to the Victorian, where Abuela waited with stories about her day, her new nurse Maria, and the garden she could see from her window. On the 4th night, Antonio invited us to dinner in his apartment upstairs. I was nervous, but Abuela insisted on going. "I want to meet this man who's turned our lives upside down," she said firmly, adjusting her best cardigan. His apartment occupied the entire top floor, a stunning space with original woodwork, restored to gleaming perfection, modern furnishings in warm tones, and a wall of windows overlooking the city. But what surprised me most was how lived in it felt. Books lay open on side tables, a half-finished chess game sat in one corner, and family photos adorned the walls. Antonio greeted Abuela with old-world courtesy, kissing her hand and speaking to her in Spanish that was surprisingly fluent. "Your grandmother is formidable," he told me later, as we cleared dinner plates while Abuela rested in a comfortable chair by the fire. "She asked if my intentions toward you were honorable." Heat rushed to my face. She didn't. She absolutely did. His eyes crinkled with amusement. Then she threatened me with divine retribution if I hurt you. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I admire her protective instinct. He rinsed a plate, passing it to me to dry. The domesticity of the moment struck me as surreal. A notorious mafia boss washing dishes beside me. She reminds me of my mother. Is she still alive? Your mother? A shadow crossed his face. No. Cancer 3 years ago. I'm sorry. It was a blessing in the end. She didn't suffer long. He handed me the last dish. My father never recovered from losing her. He died 6 months later. They must have loved each other very much. They did. He dried his hands on a towel. In our family, that's how it is. One love, one lifetime. Divorce doesn't exist. That sounds, I searched for the right word, intense. It is. His eyes held mine, but there's comfort in that kind of certainty. Later, as we prepared to leave, Antonio insisted on escorting us downstairs personally. At my door, he handed me a small gift bag. What's this? I asked. Open it tomorrow, he said, his hand briefly touching mine. Abuela watched this exchange with narrowed eyes but said nothing until we were alone. He loves you, she stated simply, as I helped her prepare for bed. That's impossible, I protested. He barely knows me, she shook her head. Some men know immediately. Your grandfather was like that, decided I was his future wife the moment he saw me. She patted my hand. Be careful, mija. Not because he's dangerous, though he is, but because he won't let you go once he's decided. I lay awake long after she fell asleep, her words echoing in my mind. In the morning, I opened Antonio's gift, a delicate silver bracelet with a small protection charm, Saint Michael the Archangel, patron saint of protection. The note read simply, to keep you safe when I can't be there. A. I wore it to work, conscious of its weight on my wrist all day. When I returned that evening, Vincent met me at the car. Mr. Castellano requests you join him upstairs when you're ready, he said. There's been a development. My stomach knotted with anxiety as I checked on Abuela, napping peacefully, and changed from my work uniform into jeans and a simple blouse. When I reached Antonio's apartment, he was on the phone, his voice tense as he spoke rapidly in Italian. He gestured for me to sit while he finished the call. We've identified a leak, he said without preamble, after hanging up. Someone close to me has been feeding information to the Rossis. They know about this safe house. Fear shot through me. Are we in danger? Should we move again? No. He poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to me. The leak has been addressed, and I've tripled security here. You're actually safer now because we know where to focus our attention. I didn't ask what addressed meant. Some details of his world were better left unexamined. Who was it? Someone I trusted. His expression hardened. It doesn't matter now. But I could see it mattered very much. Betrayal was clearly something Antonio Castellano didn't forgive easily. There's something else, he continued, sitting beside me on the sofa. Rossi's son was spotted near your old apartment last night, looking for you. My blood ran cold. Do they know about Abuela? Would they hurt her to get to me? They know about her. And yes, they would. He took my hand, his thumb brushing over the bracelet he'd given me. Elena, I need you to understand something. In my world, family is both our greatest strength and our most dangerous vulnerability. Rossi knows that. He'll target anyone connected to me, but especially... He hesitated. Especially what? I prompted. Especially anyone I might care for romantically. His dark eyes held mine. The rumors about us have spread. It doesn't matter whether they're true. Perception is reality. So I'm in danger because people think I'm your... I couldn't finish the sentence. Yes. He didn't look away. But you'd be safest if it were true. What do you mean? If you were officially under my protection, as my partner. His grip on my hand tightened slightly. No one would dare touch you then. The rules are clear about family. I stared at him, trying to process what he was suggesting. You want to pretend we're together? For protection? Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, perhaps? Not pretend, Elena. Be together. The directness of it took my breath away. You can't be serious. We barely know each other. I know everything that matters. He moved closer, his free hand coming up to touch my face. I know you're loyal, kind, brave. I know you love fiercely and protect what's yours. I know I haven't stopped thinking about you since the moment you spilled champagne on my sleeve and looked at me with those defiant eyes, my heart hammered against my ribs. This is insane. You're my boss. Not anymore. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Consider yourself permanently relieved of cleaning duties. Despite everything, the danger, the absurdity of the situation. A laugh bubbled up from my chest. You can't just decide these things for me. No, he agreed, his expression softening. I can't. The choice is yours, Elena. It always has been. But had it? From the moment I'd accepted that too-good-to-be-true job offer, hadn't I been on a path that led inevitably to this moment? To him? I need time to think, I said finally. He nodded, withdrawing his hand. Of course. But not too much time. Rossi is getting desperate. The next morning, I woke to the sound of raised voices. Antonio was in our living room, arguing quietly but intensely with Vincent. What's happening? I asked, pulling my robe tighter around me. Both men turned. Vincent looked grim. Antonio furious. There's been a threat, Antonio said, his voice controlled but tight, more specific this time, against you and your grandmother. Fear curled through my stomach. What kind of threat? They know about her medical condition. They threatened to. He stopped, jaw clenching. Vincent finished for him. They threatened to cut off her oxygen while you were forced to watch. The room seemed to tilt beneath me. Antonio was at my side instantly, his arm around my waist, keeping me upright. It won't happen, he said fiercely. I won't let it happen, but we need to move you both to a more secure location immediately. Where? I asked, my voice small. My estate in the mountains. Remote, fortified, completely secure. He led me to the sofa, sitting beside me. Elena, listen to me. This has escalated beyond what I anticipated. Rossi is unraveling. He's becoming unpredictable. Because of me? Because he thinks I'm important to you? My voice cracked. Then tell him I'm not. Tell him I'm nothing to you. Just an employee you're protecting out of obligation. Antonio's eyes darkened. I won't lie about what you mean to me, not even to protect you. Then what am I supposed to do? Keep running? Hide in the mountains forever? Tears of frustration burned my eyes. This isn't my world, Antonio. I didn't ask for any of this. His expression softened as he took my hand. I know. And I'm sorry for drawing you into it. He hesitated. There is another option, a permanent solution. What? Marry me. The words hung in the air between us, impossible and absolute. My mind went blank, unable to process what he'd just proposed. What did you say? My voice was barely audible. Marry me, Antonio repeated, his dark eyes never leaving mine. Become my wife, officially part of my family. No one, not even Vincenzo Rossi, would dare touch you then. Vincent discreetly stepped out, leaving us alone. I stood up, needing space, needing to breathe. The room suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in. You're asking me to marry you as a security measure? The words tasted bitter. No. Antonio rose too, his tall frame casting a shadow in the morning light. I'm asking you to marry me because I want you as my wife. The protection it offers is a benefit, not the reason. This is insane, I whispered, wrapping my arms around myself. We've known each other for what? A week? 2? I've known you for 3 months, he corrected gently. Watched you. Learned about you. And in my family, we don't waste time when we find the one we want. The one you want, I echoed. Antonio, you don't even know if I feel anything for you. He stepped closer, the scent of his cologne enveloping me. Don't you? The question struck at something I'd been avoiding. The undeniable pull I felt toward him. The electricity that sparked between us whenever we were close. It wasn't just fear or fascination with his dangerous world. It was something more primal, more honest. That's not the point, I deflected. Marriage isn't something you rush into because of threats and danger. It's sacred. I agree. He reached for my hand, his touch warm and steady, which is why I wouldn't ask if I wasn't certain. I don't take vows lightly, Elena. I searched his face for signs of manipulation, calculation, anything that would let me dismiss this as another power play. But all I saw was raw sincerity. And something else. Vulnerability. For the first time since I'd met him, Antonio Castellano looked uncertain. "I can't answer this now," I said finally. "It's too much." He nodded, disappointment flickering across his features before his usual controlled expression returned. "We still need to move you to the mountain estate. Today, you'll have time there to consider my proposal. And if I say no, then you say no." His voice was gentle. "Your protection isn't conditional, Elena. Whatever you decide, I'll keep you and your grandmother safe." I wanted to believe him. Part of me already did. I need to check on Abuela. I withdrew my hand from his. "When do we leave?" "Within the hour. Pack only what you need." As I turned to go, he called my name. When I looked back, his expression was grim. "Regardless of your answer, I'm ending this situation with Rossi. Permanently. Tonight." A chill ran through me at the finality in his voice. I didn't ask what he meant. Some questions were better left unasked. Abuela took the news of another move with surprising grace. "The mountains will be good for my lungs," she said pragmatically, as Maria helped her pack her medications. When I told her about Antonio's proposal, she simply nodded, as if she'd expected it. "What should I do?" I asked her, desperate for guidance. She took my hands in her weathered ones. "What does your heart tell you, mija? That this is happening too fast, that it's dangerous? Not what your head says, what your heart says." I closed my eyes, trying to silence the practical objections, the fears, the warnings. In that quiet space, the truth emerged, simple and terrifying, that I'm falling in love with him, I whispered. "That I've never felt this way before." Abuela squeezed my hands. "Then there's your answer." "But it's not that simple. His world, his life, it's all so dangerous." "Life is dangerous, Elena. Love is dangerous." Her eyes, clouded with cataracts but still sharp with wisdom, held mine. "The question is whether he's worth the risk." The journey to the mountain estate took 3 hours by car, or rather, by armed convoy. Antonio rode with us, sitting beside me in the back seat while Abuela dozed against the window. His hand found mine on the seat between us, our fingers intertwining in silent communication. The estate was breathtaking, a sprawling stone mansion nestled among pine trees, overlooking a pristine lake. Mountains rose behind it, their peaks still capped with snow despite the spring warmth. Security was everywhere, but discreetly positioned, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. "It's beautiful," I murmured as we pulled up to the main entrance. "It was my mother's favorite place," Antonio said, his voice soft with memory. She used to say the mountains reminded her that some things are eternal, unchangeable. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, more rustic than his other properties, but no less luxurious. Abuela was settled into a suite on the main floor with a view of the gardens. I was given rooms upstairs, adjacent to Antonio's, but with my own private space. "Make yourself at home," he told me, as a staff member brought in my few belongings. "I have calls to make, preparations." He hesitated. "I'll leave for the city tonight, to deal with Rossi." My stomach knotted. "Is it dangerous?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Everything worth doing carries some risk. Will you—" I swallowed hard. "Will you kill him?" His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Do you really want the answer to that question, Elena?" I thought about it, then shook my head. "No, I don't think I do." He nodded, understanding without judgment. "I'll return tomorrow. You'll be safe here until then." He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup my face. "Think about what I asked you, please." Before I could respond, he leaned down and pressed his lips to my forehead, a gesture so tender it made my heart ache. Then he was gone, leaving me with a decision that would change the course of my life forever. I spent the afternoon exploring the estate with Abuela, who seemed to gain energy from the mountain air. We walked through gardens bursting with spring flowers and sat beside the lake, watching birds swoop over the glittering water. It was peaceful, idyllic, hard to believe that somewhere Antonio was preparing for what might be a deadly confrontation. As evening fell, a staff member informed us that dinner was served on the terrace. Abuela begged off, claiming tiredness, but I suspected she was giving me space to think. I dined alone, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, my mind circling the same questions over and over. Could I marry a man like Antonio Castellano? Could I accept what he was, what he did? Could I live in his world, with its dangers and dark corners? And beyond the practical considerations, did I love him? Could love grow so quickly? Or was it just the intensity of our circumstances creating the illusion of deeper feelings? By midnight, unable to sleep, I found myself wandering the quiet halls of the mansion. Most of the staff had retired, though I knew security remained vigilant outside. In a small library off the main hall, a fire still burned in the hearth. I curled up in an armchair before it, watching the flames dance. Can't sleep? I turned to find Vincent in the doorway, his usual stern expression softened by the firelight. No, I admitted, too much on my mind. He entered, taking the chair opposite mine. He asked you to marry him. It wasn't a question. Yes. Vincent nodded, unsurprised. He told me he would. Before we left the city. What do you think about it? I asked, curious about the perspective of someone who knew Antonio so well. Vincent considered the question. I've worked for Mr. Castellano for 15 years, seen him through good times and bad. Protected him, advised him, sometimes disagreed with him. He paused. I've never seen him like this before, not with anyone. Like what? Vulnerable. Vincent looked directly at me. You have power over him, Elena. Whether you realize it or not. Whether you want it or not, the thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. I don't want power over him. I just want, what? To understand what I'm feeling, to know if it's real, or just a reaction to all this chaos. Vincent's smile was unexpected, transforming his severe features. If you were just reacting to the situation, you'd have already said yes. Danger makes people impulsive. Thoughtfulness, that suggests something deeper. His words stayed with me as I finally retired to bed, falling into a fitful sleep filled with dreams of Antonio, sometimes reaching for me across an unbridgeable chasm, sometimes holding me close as shadows gathered around us. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the distant sound of a helicopter. Rushing to the balcony, I saw it landing on a pad near the lake, figures emerging from it. Even from a distance, I recognized Antonio's confident stride. He was back. Which meant it was over. I dressed quickly and went downstairs, finding him in the main hall, giving instructions to Vincent. He looked tired but unharmed. No visible injuries, no sign of conflict except for the shadows beneath his eyes. When he saw me, everything else seemed to fade into the background. Elena. My name on his lips sounded like a prayer. You're back, I said unnecessarily, my heart racing. Is it over? He nodded once. Completely. Vincent and the other men discreetly withdrew, leaving us alone. Antonio crossed to me in 3 long strides, his hands coming up to frame my face. I couldn't wait to get back to you, he said, his voice low and intense. Every minute felt like an eternity. Are you hurt? I searched his face, his hands. No. His thumbs traced my cheekbones gently. Are you ready to tell me your decision? I took a deep breath. I have conditions. A smile touched his lips. I expected nothing less. Tell me. Abuela stays with us, wherever we live. She gets the best care possible, of course. I want to finish my education, the degree I had to abandon when my father died and we needed money. Whatever you want to study, wherever you want to go. His hands slid down to rest on my shoulders. I need to know everything about your business. No secrets. If I'm going to be part of your world, I can't be kept in the dark. This gave him pause. Some things might be better. No secrets, I repeated firmly. I can't live with lies or omissions, Antonio. I need to know exactly what I'm agreeing to. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. No secrets. But I warn you, Elena. My world isn't always pretty, I know. I reached up, placing my hand over his heart. And I want your word that you'll try to keep your business as legitimate as possible. For our future. For any children we might have. Something flickered in his eyes at the mention of children. A softness. A yearning. You have my word. One last thing. I held his gaze steadily. I need to know this is real, that you're asking me to marry you because you love me, not because of some old-world sense of protection or obligation. Elena. His voice was rough with emotion. He took my hand from his chest and placed it against his cheek. From the moment I saw you, something inside me recognized you. Call it fate, destiny, whatever you want. But I knew. Every day since has only confirmed what I already felt. He turned his face to press a kiss to my palm. I love you. More than I thought possible. More than I've ever loved anyone. The simple declaration, spoken with such raw honesty, broke down the last of my resistance. I rose on tiptoes and pressed my lips to his, our first real kiss. He responded instantly, his arms wrapping around me, pulling me against him as if he'd never let me go. The kiss deepened, igniting something primal and powerful between us, a connection that transcended the circumstances that had brought us together. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, I looked into his eyes and saw my future reflected there. Complicated, perhaps dangerous, but filled with a love so fierce it would withstand anything. Yes, I whispered against his lips. I'll marry you, Antonio Castellano. His smile was radiant, transforming his usually serious face. You won't regret it, mi amor. I'll spend my life making sure of that. 6 months later, we were married in a small ceremony on the grounds of the mountain estate. Abuela, resplendent in a new blue dress, wept happy tears as she watched me walk down an aisle of rose petals. Antonio's eyes never left mine as we exchanged vows that meant more than just words. They were promises, binding us together for whatever came next. Our life isn't perfect. His world still has shadows, still holds dangers. But we face them together, stronger as a pair than either of us could be alone. And in the quiet moments, when he holds me in the dark, when we walk by the lake, when he reads to Abuela in the garden, I know I made the right choice. Sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected circumstances. Sometimes the most dangerous man turns out to be the one who makes you feel safest. And sometimes, what begins as a maid being followed home becomes the greatest love story you could never